Welcome, this is Jim, host of the Faith Influencer podcast, where we're going to dive into discussions on faith's role in everyday life, from navigating blended families to overcoming challenges. I'm a husband, a father, a Bible teacher, an advocate for applying faith to everyday life. So tune in as I share personal stories, valuable insights, and practical wisdom. I'm starved for love. Do you know how many times I've heard that in marriage counseling? A husband or a wife saying, I'm starving for love. Well, this is Jim Cunningham with Faith Influencer. It's our blended family podcast. And today we're talking about my love bank is low. So I think this can apply to marriage in general, but I want you to grab this as a blended family, which means that you're in your second marriage or third marriage or wherever it is after your first marriage, because here's my contention. My contention is that for whatever reason, something happened in your first marriage. There was probably a progression that happened when your love bank began to get empty, or his love bank was empty. And in that process, you began to drift apart. Well, here you are. This is how I want you to see this. Here you are with a second chance. This time, we have to be intentional. That's our word, intentional. We have to be intentional about each other's love bank. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's jump in. So when someone enters a new relationship, and let me just set up a scenario. Here you are, you've been through a divorce, you have children, you're blending your children together. And the reason you are is because you found another person. You found the right man, you found the right woman. And now you're thinking, oh, I wish I'd have found this person the first time. This is the right person. This feels so good. And I'm not trying to throw water on this, but it always does in the beginning. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that in your first marriage that didn't make it, it probably felt good in the beginning. It always does, but didn't work out. So here you are with another chance. This time, we're going to do some things differently. This is going to be better. And so what you have to understand is that it's always easier at first. It feels easier at first. It's easier to meet each other's needs at first. But then what happens? Then we settle in. And after we settle in, we start dealing with real life, especially in blended families. In blended families, life is different because now you have the children involved and you settle into this blended family life, and off come the rose-colored glasses, and it's not what you expected. Now I want to stop there and I want to address something, because if you're too idealistic here, you'll think, well, maybe I married the wrong person, or this isn't going to work because it doesn't feel like it did in the beginning. I want you to know this. I want you to know that when you take off the rose-colored glasses and you settle in and you don't have those same feelings that you did in the beginning, this is normal. I want you to grab this. This is normal. It doesn't mean it was wrong. It doesn't mean you should not have done it. I'm telling you, it's normal. Why? Because no one marries the perfect guy. No one marries the perfect woman. We're all flawed. We all need to grow. And so don't put that on each other. But it doesn't mean your marriage is doomed. So what I want you to see is that here's what we're going to do different. This time, as we begin to settle in and life all around us is pounding, this time we're going to pay attention. We're going to pay attention not to everything around us. We're going to pay attention to each other. We're going to pay attention to my wife, to my husband. We're going to pay attention to their needs. We're not going to let that slide this time because life is so crazy, especially in a blended family. So what am I going to pay attention to? We're going to pay attention to each other's love bank. And do you know what a love bank is? First of all, everybody has one. Everybody has a love bank. But what we're going to pay attention to is, are we making deposits in each other's love bank? And if you're making deposits in each other's love bank intentionally, then our survival as married couples is going to be so much better. The divorce rate's going to go down because we have love tanks love banks that are being filled. So everyone has this love bank. We're going to make deposits. And what is a deposit? A deposit is something you do for each other. It could be something you do. It could be something you say. It could be a look. It could be a lot of things. But these are all contributions to each other's love bank. Now, I'm going to give you some examples because sometimes we're a little slow. Okay, I'll say it nicely. We're a little slow and we don't understand what it means to make a contribution to each other's love bank. Let me start with the men, okay? Men, maybe we are a little slower sometimes. And so I'm going to help us out and tell you what it means, but here's the default. When you say to a guy, to so many guys, I'm going to make a deposit in my wife's love bank, guys default to physical. You think that means something physical touch or sexual. That's not what it means. That's not what I'm talking about. Let me say that when you, in studying the Bible and you look up the word love, and we're making contributions to each other's love bank, there are three different words for love in the Bible. One is the word eros, which means erotic, or we'd say today, sexual love. So that is a type of love. And then the other is called phileo, which is where we got the name Philadelphia from. It is brotherly love. This means affection. So there is sexual love. There is the love that's referring to affection. And then the ultimate love is agape, and that is sacrificial love. All of these types of loves we ought to be showing to each other. So let's make some deposits. And guys, let me give you some examples. So we've already said that doesn't mean that you just want to be sexual with your wife. No, that's you. What is it that she needs in her love bank? Here's an example. It's a practical example, but are you surprised how many times people have told me this? A guy walks into the kitchen and notices that the trash is overflowing, and he buttons up the trash, takes it out, throws it into the dumpster. You know what you did? You just made a deposit in her love bank. Ladies, comment in the comments about if that's true or not, because I know it's true. I talk to too many couples. It's those little things. What would happen, guy, husband, if you walked into the kitchen and the dishwasher had clean dishes that have not been unloaded, and your wife is walking through the house, probably doing the laundry or doing something, and she hears you emptying the dishwasher. And she comes in, and after she gets up from the floor because she fell over due to shock, when she sees that you've emptied the dishwasher, you know what you've done? You've made a deposit in her love bank. Now, oftentimes, that deposit is something you do. I'm going to say with all the marriage counseling that I've done, that women more often than not say that it is something that her husband does for her that makes a deposit in her love bank, but it's not just something that he does. Listen, guys, it's something that he does that cost him something. That's sacrificial. That's the ultimate type of love. It's when you do something that costs you something, or when you do something, guy, husband, when you do something and she knows that you hate doing that, but you did it for her, that means something to her. You know what that's called? A deposit in her love bank. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. These are very practical ways we make deposits. It's just something simple. Or how about noticing something? How about she walks out of the room, and sometimes it's just a look. She looks at you, and we guys have this look. She looks at you, and you're thinking she is smoking. And you have that look on your face of almost just lust. And your wife looks at you, and she may turn away, she may roll her eyes, but she likes that you look at her that way. I was dealing with a couple one day, and I was walking through the positive sides of their marriage. And you know what the wife said to me? One of the things that she liked about her husband, that was a deposit in her love bank. She said, what I like is how he looks at me. She said that kind of stirs me inside because he looks at me as if I'm attractive. That's a deposit. Look at your wife that way. How about this? How about notice something? How about notice that her hair's different? What would your wife say if she came home and you noticed that the color of her fingernail paint was different? You're that observant. How would that fit? That's a deposit. Small things like that. How about if you complimented her hair? We have a thing between my wife and I, and this is kind of our thing now we do, and the kids now get in on it, and they think it's funny, is that if I get my hair cut or she goes to the beauty shop and she comes home, whatever, the first thing we say is, wow, your hair looks nice. And the kids notice that. For example, if I come home and I've got my hair cut and they see it and my wife doesn't say anything, they kind of get this little smirk on their face and they're waiting. They're waiting for her to say something. And if she doesn't say something, they make a deal about it. So we just have this atmosphere where, people are worth noticing. We're going to notice things about each other. Well, that's a little deposit in a love bank. So what fills your love bank? I want to ask you, ladies, if you would do this for us. Hit comment, tell us those kinds of things that your husband does for you that fills your love bank. I would love to see those, and I think it would help others who read the comments to see those as well. Now, let me make one caution, and I'm going to make this caution to the ladies, okay, ladies? I want you to understand that your husband is not a mind reader. He can't read your mind. So as we begin building our marriages to have strong marriages, and you're determined that this next marriage is going to be good, understand your husband needs to know what is important to you, what is meaningful to you. You have to communicate it to him. He's just not going to automatically know. Maybe you need to say to him, honey, it speaks to me when you notice that I look nice or that I'm wearing something different. Or it speaks to me when you empty the dishwasher or whatever. Communicate that to him. It's important that he hears from you and you not expect him just to know. All right? So communicate those kinds of things. Now, let me share this scripture with you, and I want you to grab this. First of all, before I do, let me ask you ladies this. Here's a test. Here's your test. What is the number one thing that fills a man's love bank? At the very top of the list. I know what you're thinking, but think about it for a moment. What is the number one thing that he needs? I mean, the Bible tells us, and I'm going to read it to you. What is the number one thing that speaks to him? Listen to this passage. I'm going to read it from Ephesians 5, verse 33. It says that we're to love one another, and husbands, you must love your wife as you love yourself. That's that agape love, that sacrificial love. You must love your wife as you love yourself. But listen to this, wife. Here's the number one thing. I promise you it's not what you thought or what was going through your mind. The number one thing, the verse goes on and says, and wives, here's our instructions from God. And wives, you must respect your husband. That's what he says. Is it interesting to you that God says, men, what your wife needs is love? Ladies, what your man needs is respect. That's what God said. So men, love your wife. Women, respect your husband. That's what God gave us. So what is the number one thing that men need? Respect. That's what they need. They need respect. That's at the top of the list. It's the ultimate for guys to know that his wife respects him. There are lots of ways that I see women not respect their men when they act like their man is dumb. I see that so much. She acts like he can't add two and two together. She feels like she has to do anything that's important because he's too dumb to do it. That's disrespect. That begins to wear away at him. He needs to know that you respect him. Let me tell you what else he needs to know. He needs to know that when you're with your girlfriends, that you're not talking about him. He needs to know that you're not talking bad about him to other people. That is such disrespect. He needs respect. Now, it's not easy to give like this to each other because the number one reason we don't fill each other's love bank is because of selfishness. That's the bottom line of even sin, selfishness. The reason why you don't want to meet his needs, selfish. The reason why you don't want to meet her needs, selfish. So we have to overcome that. Again, the word love is sacrificial. We have to overcome that selfishness and think about their needs. Think about his need. Think about her need. Now, I want to ask you women, how many of you, when I said, what is the number one need that your husband has? How many of you, I mean, you can type it in here and be honest. How many of you thought that it was going to be sexual or physical? Probably the majority of you. And he may even act like that, but beneath all of that is respect. So he loves it. Now, let me say something else, ladies, about filling your man's love bank, okay? How about this? And this is personal for me. How about when he comes home and he says, baby, I got a birdie on hole number 2 today, and you brag on his golf game. Oh, you think that's so stupid? Well, not to him. Not to him. That's making a deposit. How about you asking him about his day, how his day went? But when you do, and this is what I see in a lot of marriages and through lots of counseling, is that when you ask him, don't interrupt him and go off with your own story. When you ask him how his day went, look him in the eyes. I'm helping you here. Look him in the eyes and listen. Now, I know sometimes guys can drone on, but ladies can too, drone on with their story and fill in a lot of details that you don't care about. Doesn't matter. Remember, selfishness, the opposite, selflessness. Your spouse is telling you a story. You look them in the eye and you listen. You don't interrupt and you don't try to jump ahead in the story so you can bypass some of the details. No, you listen to their story, and that is filling each other's love bank. That's what I'm asking you to do. So show respect. Now, let me give you the big 3 as we wrap this up. Let me give you the big 3. That, one, you're going to affirm each other. A guy loves it when you affirm him in front of other people. When you affirm him in front of other people. How about this? You're with a group of people. Wives, I'm going to give you this advice. You're with a group of people, and you walk up to your husband, and you slide your arm inside of his arm. You know what he does? He swells up with pride because that's an affirmation from his wife. That feels good to him. I'm not talking about if it feels good to you. I'm talking about what it feels good to him. So do it. Let me tell you the second thing. Maybe this ought to be number 1. The number 1 thing, these are the big 3 that you can do. Not only affirm him, but pray for him. Pray for him. Pray for your husband. I mean, we need it, and you need to pray. So pray for him. Pray that God blesses him. Pray that God teaches him. Pray that God grows him into the husband that he needs to be, into the father. Pray for your husband. And then here's the last thing. Be his cheerleader. I mean, all of us guys like our wives as cheerleaders. Be his cheerleader. I mean, walk by. Okay, I don't care that this sounds stupid because I'm being very practical. Walk by, and you know what? I said slide your hand into his arm. And when you do, you know where your hand's going to be? On his bicep. Then what are you going to say? I'm coaching you here. Then what are you going to say? You're going to say, babe, have you been working out? That sounds, what? Yeah. He's going to say, well, and make up something. So do those kinds of things. What are we doing? We're filling each other's love bank. That's what we're doing. Have fun with it. Start noticing each other. Start noticing things that you don't expect the other person to notice. And then when you leave, this is the last thing. When you leave and maybe your wife is in the other room, or maybe your husband is still home and you're off to work, and you jot down a little note. You get this little sticky pad and you jot down a little note and you put it somewhere you know he's going to see it. Something simple. Thinking about you today. I love you. I'm so glad we're married. Something, let me ask you, how's that going to feel? That's going to fill your love bank. So it's not difficult. It's not rocket science. It's just intentional. And it can be very practical. And it's very important to growing our relationship together. All right. Thanks for joining us at Faith Influencer. See you next time.